Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing good. So welcome to the Analyst dated 14th of October, where we will take up the current affair analysis of the news articles published in the Hindu and Indian Express. Today we have got 9 major highlights for you, wherein we will be having an in-depth discussion on the first 2 articles, the first one being about the recently concluded Quad summit and its possible implication on India-China relation as covered in an editorial analysis. Second one, we'll be talking how amid rising growth rate of precision medicine in India, we will see how creating biobank laws would be instrumental. We will also be covering 7 other important articles in simplified version, along with providing handout to you for revision and 5 MCQs in the end to develop your prelims aptitude. So let's start the journey. So in the last month of September, we saw a Prime Minister visiting Delaware state of USA. Why? Because a Quad meeting was there to be happened, which was conducted by US. Now it got concluded with the Wilmington Declaration. Now, there are concerns regarding what this declaration had at its fold, on its paper, and secondly, how China might interpret it. On similar lines, a very beautiful editorial analysis has been put forward by Mr. M.K. Narayan, who is also former Director of Intelligence Bureau. So we will be looking at what is the Quad dilemma and how it can hamper the ties between India and China, which is basically talked about in this editorial. But not to forget, from UPSC point of view, since Quad itself is a very important topic, we'll again be revisiting the entire analytical part of what is Quad and what are its significance and challenges and way forward. So first of all, why are we reading this? A very important part of GS paper 2, where the bilateral regional global groupings such as Quad and their impact on India has to be assessed and analyzed by us. Now, first of all, what is a Quad? Though we have already read it in the analysis of 22nd of September, but still let me again ask you the same question. Is it a security alliance? Is it a military organization? Or in fact, is it even a formal grouping? The answer is absolutely no, because it is a loosely held informal alliance between 4 very important economies of the world who have got major stakes in the Indo-Pacific region. These economies are, of course, Japan, which mooted this idea first. Then there is India, Australia and USA. In order to safeguard the Indo-Pacific region, according to their theme, they have got a common collateral interest of having free, open and prosperous Indo-Pacific, which is threatened by the over-assertiveness of the China, because we have seen how it violates the sovereignty of many nations by demarcating a 9-dashed line, by building OBOR, or by asserting its influence on the South China Sea, that too unduly. So the threat that is posed by China needs to be counter-attacked, and there is a very strong multilateral which is formed in this regard. Its name is Quad. Quad was first officially formalized in the year 2017, but not to forget that it is coming out of a segment of the ASEAN. So what happened in 2007, first mooted by Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, there was an informal meeting of ASEAN leader where he said that we might try to counter the aggressiveness of the China, because they're also threatening our Diago Island, our Senkaku Islands. So therefore, in order to safeguard this entire global common of Indo-Pacific, it doesn't belong to one country or two, it's a global common, needs global alliance. So therefore, Shinzo Abe said for the first time that we need a mini-lateral with specific interest protecting of Indo-Pacific. Next, there was a creation of Democratic Security Diamond, which was officially called Quad in 2017, still remaining the informal, loosely held group, which means that most of the talks that happens or most of the decisions that are made in Quad is not through a secretariat level, it's not through any treaty, it is only through summits, it is only through talking, it is only through the meeting of the foreign ministers. So first thing needs to be made clear that this is a strategic dialogue, it is not a security alliance. That should be made clear in your mind, but still, we, along with all the cooperatives, we conduct certain military exercises. The first one among them was held in 2020. It is not much important, but this year is important because this is the year when the Australia was also formally inducted into it, because initially Japan, USA and India anyway used to have Malabar exercise. Now Australia also got into a part of it, so informally we created a security dialogue. Now, why am I exerting this fact that it is only a security dialogue and not a security alliance? Because in the editorial itself, it is written in the second paragraph that according to the Wilmington Declaration, though it did not mention any country, least of all China by the name, but nothing was left to imagination, that it was exactly formed to checkmate the China. It is written over here that it was obvious that four maritime democracies had a single objective, that is to checkmate China. Now, this editorial analyzes how China might be interpreting it and how it might try to create regional and geopolitical conflicts and rifts between India and China. So, first of all, it focuses on the current state of India-China relationship. Currently, do you know what is happening? Even if we see that there is a kind of peace negotiation going on between India and China, but still there are standoffs, there is heavy militarization along the LOCs, along the areas which are disputed between India and China. So, first of all, the Galwan border standoff is going on since the Galwan incident. Second, in the Depsang plans and in the Demchok also, there is rising militarization, rising number of equipments that are deployed by Indian side. For example, in Ladakh, you can see deployment of advanced artillery, howitzers and long-range missiles are already done. Why? Because India is contemplating that China at any time could make a strategic move and can again cause incursions into our sovereignty. So therefore, we are ready, which means that the condition, the relations between both the countries, though externally it is seeming peaceful, but internally they both know that there could be certain rift. So any spark would be a great cause of a conflict between both of us. So therefore, both the parties are getting military ready. Second, China is also having confidence in its military superiority because of the huge fund the government gives for maintaining military so that it can extend its sovereignty, not just establish it. And also, India is also aware of the strategic moves, just like how China did in the case of Doklam, in the case of Galwan incident. So therefore, India has to be ready, it has to be prepared, and therefore also has to be wary as to how China is interpreting the Wilmington Declaration or the Quad dialogues. So first of all, what is going on in China right now is what we call as aggressive nationalism, specially initiated by the Prime Minister Xi Jinping. So he asserted that for China, asserting its sovereignty and imposing nationalism through every length and breadth is the supreme goal of every Chinese nationalist. And therefore, China calculates that anything that hinders our sovereignty, for example, our historical claims on the Nine Dash Line on the South China Sea, or let's say on the Himalayan region, if anybody or any country, any other sovereignty tries to impinge upon it, we will try to destroy it with the help of our aggressive military tactics. That is what China feels. So therefore, Himalayan border issue, the eastern seaboard issue, which means the South China Sea issue, and the Pacific claims are of utmost importance to China right now because of the current political stance. Now, therefore, according to the editor, it becomes very important for India to take a neutral stance, to take a balanced stance. First of all, not to come out in full alignment with the USA. That is the first thing. Second thing is, India should also ensure that they are having partnerships with China also on multi-fronts level. Why? Because China is an important trade partner. And also, we would require to secure our sovereignty, our national security. And because we have got multiple friction points with China, we do not want to give them an excuse. Secondary, we also want to ensure that China at no metric considers this as a security alliance against it. Otherwise, it will start creating security alliances on its own with other countries. Alongside it, would try to impose its military powers on us. Now, this is about the editorial and what all it talked about. Moving further into the analysis, we are going to bring your attention back to Quad. What is the significance of Quad? Why is it a very important minilateral to be signed? First and foremost is the strategic significance. Strategic because it is working. It is working on an area. The platform is an area which is of strategic importance to not just these four economies but to the entire world, because this is the next uprising area of conflict. I'm talking about the Indo-Pacific region and the growing Chinese assertiveness on it. And also because of the militarization of the zone. We would like to keep it secure, free and inclusive, and that is why it's a strategic comprehensive partnership. Next is the economic partnership. Now, Quad not only just focuses on the platform of Indo-Pacific but also wants to benefit each other economy. For example, the economic partnership is such that we have got we all have the trade that has got established after the commencement of Quad has leveraged between all the countries, and also the infrastructure. We have pledged about $500 billion worth of infrastructure, especially the climate resilient infrastructure in each other's economy. So this alliance also helps the other countries in the terms of reaping their economic benefit. Next is ensuring maritime security for each other country. Their maritime borders are very important to each other. 75,000 kilometers for us, even twice for USA. So therefore, it becomes very important to safeguard maritime security. And therefore, we also conduct maritime exercises, for example, the Malabar exercise. Now, Australia is also a part of it. Next is to ensure the regional stability. Regional stability ensures that there is going to be geopolitical stability, economic stability, stock markets are not clashing, because we've already seen in the case of the regional stability of Middle East, whenever there is a conflict happening over there, the entire world suffers from it. So therefore, we do not want the rippling effect coming from the Indo-Pacific zone. It's very important to ensure the regional stability of each other country and also of India-Pacific region. Next is, it also offers support to each other during the post-COVID. Post-COVID saw first and the most important problem, that is the disruption of supply chain. Most of the countries were dependent on China, deployed a lot of its manufacturing units in China. Now they would want to have different alternatives. So therefore, now USA FPIs in industries are moving towards India and Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries. So post-COVID diplomacy is also very important, and this has also shown us that the support we have shown to each other in the times of post-COVID, the COVID recovery has been instrumental in forging a more comprehensive partnership. Next is the cultural significance. Now you know where most of the Indians go, either to USA or to Japan, because they offer more lucrative jobs, more lucrative employment, especially accruing to their aging economy. So therefore, culturally, people are the best tie holders of any democratic policy. So therefore, or any diplomatic policy. So therefore, cultural ties between four countries are also very important and are also growing rapidly. Second is debt management. Lesser do you know that when we do the talks among the Quad leaders, they also talk about many things. For example, how to deal with climate change, how to protect our critical infrastructure, how to work upon the critical and emerging technologies, and not just that, how to also ensure debt management for all the economies. So we also have got a collective fund in which we help each other in order to sustain the debt or the overlying debt and to repay it. Okay. Now, when we know that these are such a nice significances and the areas of cooperation of Quad, then what are the limitations which we need to be wary of? First and foremost is how Quad is being interpreted. That is very important. Second is the perspective of Quad is very important. Therefore, the choice of word of it as a security dialogue is more important for UPSC point of view also. Second is, it lacks a definitive structure because there is no treaty, there is no secretariat. Therefore, see, dialogues are not decisions, and therefore, even though in so many areas it is cooperating, it is not coming out as that substantial as compared to something which is done by United Nations or something that is done by, let's say, SCO, which are having more stronger legal backing. Next is difficulty in addressing the China's concern. Till now, we don't see any such conclusion by Quad where it has said that this is the way, this is the mechanism through which we will be countering the security, we will be countering the China or ensuring the security of Indo-Pacific region. Are we seeing that? No. So substantially, it has not proven to do anything to safeguard this region from the China's aggressiveness so far. Next is the imbalanced cooperation. Why? Because we are working together in space sector, climate sector, technology sector, but think about the disparity between the countries. Australia is not good as India when it comes to sharing the technology. Similarly, when it comes to military capacity, compare that of Japan or compare that of Australia with that of USA. So it is pretty low. So this disparity also causes a concern within them. They feel that, let's say USA and India would be feeling that we are being used in this partnership, and this one in turn is not benefiting as much. So therefore, this could cause a limiting belief. This could cause the demise of this very important Quad group. Second is limited military capabilities, because even though we are working together on multiple exercises, military exercises, they are not still good enough. We have still not caused technology transfer at that much scale. And second is the domestic politics. So it is also more likely that because we are in a partnership, the politics of one country could get overflowed into the politics of other country, which we need to be wary of, that the policies of USA should not be getting rubbed off on the policies of India. These are the limitations, not exactly limitations, but the challenges which we need to take care of. How do we take care of it? By following this particular way forward. See, first of all is strengthening the commitment and the engagement. The commitment and engagement is mostly happening through dialogues and summits. Even if this is the only method of engagement, they should be happening more frequently and should be taken more seriously by all the countries together. Second, communicating the clear intention as to what exactly is the goal and vision of Quad, so that it is not misinterpreted on the global front. Second is delivering the concrete outcome is very important, which means we might need to sign certain treaties or legally binding agreement with each other. Next, building a consultative mechanism where the partner countries of Quad should be there, but the other countries having similar stakeholders in the Indo-Pacific region. For example, the Asian countries, South Korea, etc. They should also be included into the consultative mechanism. And then strengthening the military and strategic cooperation, because if at all you want to counter China, you need to be having better military mechanisms in them. For that, in order to bolster the military mechanism, we need to have a military fund, a strategic fund, and we need to also transfer the military technology and capability to each other neutrally. Next is developing Quad Plus. So Quad also needs to be broadened up. How we can include countries having similar agendas, for example, South Korea, Israel, we can add them also, some ASEAN countries, for example, Philippines, they can also be inducted so that we become more bold, we become more comprehensive and inclusive of the countries of Indo-Pacific region, so that our aim would be easily fructified. Now here is a potential question which could be asked in the mains examination, so I would request you to practice this one. Now moving you to the next topic. Our next article is an interesting read on precision medicines and how the growth rate of precision medicine could be harnessed in India by having good regulatory laws on the biobanks. So how these two concepts are interrelated, what are these concepts and what India has been doing regarding it, we'll be looking into it. This has been covered in the text and context section of the Hindu newspaper and we are reading it amid the potential rise in the Indian precision medicine market expected to grow at a rate of 16%, compounded annual growth rate of 16%. So first of all, what is a precision medicine and how is it different from the conventional traditional medicine? So have you ever wondered that why when you and let's say some of your friends suffering from the same disease is not getting treated by similar kind of medicines? Why is it that that medicine is effective on you but not on your friend? This happens because of the lack of personalization in the current medicine system. What happens is, if anybody is getting fever, everybody will be subjected to paracetamol. It is fine if the disease is not of a chronic or acute level, but what about cancers which are having so many variants? Or what about other diseases, for example, the genetic disorders which are very difficult to be marked, which are very difficult to be understood? And what about some other life-threatening diseases, acute diseases, chronic diseases, immunological disorders, and also rare genetic disorders? So, how first of all to understand whether a particular segment of population or a particular line of inheritance is going to be affected by this particular disease? So, first of all, how to diagnose beforehand. Second, if we have diagnosed, how to put measures which can prevent it effectively. And if, God forbid, again it has been affected, the person or the entire phenology has been affected by it, then how to cure it. So all of this needs higher degree of personalization if we want our medical science to become more effective in curing the disease and improving the healthcare system across the world. So for that, it is very important to know that the effectiveness of a medicine differs from person to person depending upon three determinants. These three determinants are the gel determinants. G stands for the genetic makeup of their body, E stands for their environment, and L stands for their lifestyle. Depending upon the permutation and combination of these three parameters, one can predict whether the person could be having this particular disease, could be building this disease in the future, or what could be the preventive measures to be taken for this particular person, what could be the curative measures. So please remember, what determines, what creates, what is basic philosophy of creating a personalized medicine is to understand that there are genetic variations, environmental variations, and also lifestyle variations. It is very easy to predict what are the environmental variations and lifestyle variations in a person, but very difficult to predict the genetic variation going on. For that, we would require a huge amount of research and development. Well, for the first time, it was done in the world with the help of Human Genome Project. This was taken up in the year 1993 and finally got finished in 2003, where they assessed or they created the genomic profiles. They did the genetic profiling of more than 10 lakh humans. And on the basis of this profile, they were able to create a data bank. That data bank is used by the doctors, it is used by the clinical experts in order to understand how to give the personalized medication to that particular person. So, first of all, the success of Human Genome Project is the one which has ushered the era of bringing precision medicine. I hope you've understood that. Now, this will help us not just in treating, but also in diagnosis, which I've already told you, diagnosis of more acute diseases, for example, chronic illnesses, immunological disorder, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, etc., okay, which are life-threatening. Now, what are the emerging technologies which enhances this delivery of precision medicine? Precision medicine means I'm working on a genetic level, which means I'm trying to use the stem cells, I'm trying to use the RNA, the DNA molecules, studying them and also using them as a type of medicine. Right? So, what are the emerging technologies? First and foremost, the gene editing. You already have learned about the CRISPR technology, Cas9. It is doing gene editing. So, we are creating medicines at the genetic level. We are manipulating things at genetic level and therefore curing the disease. This has already been done in USA when they have cured the diabetes in people with the help of stem cell therapy. There is also mRNA therapeutics. mRNA vaccines have been delivered during what? During the COVID time. So, very effective. In 2023 was also offered the Nobel Prize. So, gene editing is one emerging technology. Second, stem cell therapy is another emerging technology. Next is the organ-on-chip technology. So, sometimes what happens, we are creating medicine, but we are not sure whether it will be effective on a person's organ. Now, I cannot use a person, exploit their organ, right? It will cause death to them. So, therefore, I can create organ cells on a chip, and I will deliver that medicine for testing on these chips, and then I will see how this organ is responding, and then if this research is successful, then I will start implementing it on large scale on people. So these are some of the technologies which provides precision medicine techniques. Okay, what is the precision medicine prospects in India? First of all, is the growing market rate and the economic contribution of the same. The annual compounded growth rate of precision medicine in India is 16%, one of the highest ever in the world. India already is the pharmacy of the world. We are the global manufacturers of medicines and pharmaceuticals, etc. And not only that, we are also compounding our growth rate on the precision medicine instruments. For example, did we create the Nexcar 19? What was this? This was the first indigenously developed CAR T-cell therapy to cure leukemia cancers in the body. So we are working here, we are working where? We are working at the genetic level. We are working at more micro level, delivering more precision medicines. This is a kind of advancement made by India. Second, it is supposed to grow up to a $5 billion economy by 2030. And 36% of current national bioeconomy is contributed directly by the precision medicines itself. And it is also supported by the policies, for example, the Bio E3 policy, which supports or provides funds to create precision medicine. So the environment is very good in India to create precision medicines. And certain milestones that have been reached already is, of course, India's first indigenous CAR T cell therapy, NextCAR19, the artificial intelligence being used in precision medicine, for example, in dealing with diabetes, cancers, already deployed in the Apollo hospitals, taken care by the IISc Bangalore. So these are some of the milestones. But at the same time, there are certain challenges which are impeding the full throttle growth of the precision medicine. That is the lack of having laws related to biobanks. What is biobank? See, if I'm working on a genetic level, which means I'm working at information level. What is genomics? It is the entire genetic information of an individual, which means all of my data is inside my genome. And with the help of that genome, you are able to treat me. But at the same time, what I'm doing, I'm giving the consent of transferring all that data to you. So therefore, the underlying issues would be of piracy, would be of privacy, would be of misusing that data, would be of using medicines or creating medicines that might not be suitable for me because they have been taken out from the data of, let's say, Americans. Okay, so these are some of the challenges. So how to deal with it is to create biobanks, and not just create the biobanks, but also have a very strong, uniform regulatory guidelines which are controlling these biobanks. First of all, what is biobank? As the name suggests, it is a repository of all the biological samples, for example, the blood, the tissues, the stem cells, etc., along with their genetic data. So there should be one uniform central based repository which should be heavily regulated in India. Because what is the role of biobank in precision medicine? The role of biobanks ensure that the data of almost all the ethnic groups, and this large amount of data is stored in one place, which cannot be misused because of strong regulatory guidelines around it. So first of all, it will give me access to large and diverse data. This will make the precision medicine more effective, because let's say something is beneficial for one ethnic group of India, could not be beneficial for the second ethnic group of India. India is a salad bowl of diversity. So therefore, I want large and diverse data. With the help of this, I'll be able to benefit not just one but all the segments of the society. Second, I will be able to identify the undiagnosed patients also, which could in future be potentially generating or developing genetic disorders. Why? Because I have huge amount of data that is processed safely. That is the relevance of creating a biobank. Because if I'm not having data, if I'm not having repository, how will I create research? How will I bring reductions? So creating a bank is important. Maintaining and regulating that bank is more important. So the largest biobank of sarcoma patient has already been created in USA, which has derived organoids from all the patient and was very instrumental in treating the sarcoma cancer. Does India also have any biobank? Yes. As of now, this entire huge country has only 19 registered biobanks. There could be unregistered ones as well. But of course, if they are unregistered, they are heavily unregulated. We are not going to talk about them. 19 registered biobanks. India also has got Genome India project, which supports the creation of this genomic data by assessing about 10,000 individuals from 99 ethnic groups. Next is the Phenome India project, which intends to again create 10,000 sample in order to create predictive model as to which part of population is more likely to develop the cardiovascular metabolism related diseases. Second is the pediatric rare genetic disorder. Pediatric means anything related to children. Children could develop a lot of rare genetic disorder, but there should be markers. There should be markers that can be created beforehand, so that during the time of pregnancy only it can be predicted that this child could be generating this disorder, right? So for that, this project is also taken up. But then, India is also faced by certain challenges with regards to its biobank regulation. First and foremost, we do not have enough regulation, so there are regulatory gaps, especially when we compare it with the developed economies like USA, UK, China, Japan, etc., which have got very uniformized and strong, stringent guidelines as to how to secure their biobank. Second, regarding informed consent, whenever people are taken for research, whenever they are taken for the research purposes, they have to sign an agreement, they have to give their consent. In the case of India, it is most of the times violated, which means, let's say my data is getting assessed, I will not be informed as to where exactly my data will be used. So this also causes certain ethical concerns, because my data could be misauthorized, could be misused, could be mishandled. So therefore, there are multiple challenges with regards to current bioregulation regime. So this one is not just having privacy and regulatory concerns, but also concerns regarding research. So access to Indian samples, if they are done by the foreign entities, without ensuring that Indians are having their due consent on it, or Indians are duly getting benefited from the benefits that are deriving out of the research, this entire project would turn out to be futile, because they are using our data but they are not providing us the solutions which we require from our data. Right? So these are some of the concerns, and therefore this is a high time to regulate, to create good regulations around the biobank regulations, and India has got a huge leadership opportunity. Why? Because of the technological advancement we have in the field of medical science. Already we are the pharmacy of the world. So why can't we also become the pharmacy of the precision medicine in the world? What is the only requirement? Proper regulatory standards. So first of all, we need to align the biobanking laws with the global standards already followed by some of the major economies. Second, have strong data protection, privacy safeguards and regulatory oversight. Next, to become leader, we already are leader in generic drug manufacturing and vaccine production. So with the help of this benefit that we have, we can create alliances with certain other countries which are already performing good in developing precision medicine technology and learn from their regulatory laws. So we can also have a collaboration, okay, because we have got strong goodwill. Next is creating next generation therapeutics through robust regulatory framework is something that India needs to look forward, should be the medicine revolution 2.0 for India. With this comes the next question for writing from mains point of view. Precision medicine is transforming healthcare by offering personalized treatment. So first of all, you have to bring some data to justify the statement. Then you have to discuss the potential benefit and the challenges which we have just discussed. And now let's move on to the third topic. So here we are going to talk about an issue that is going on with the demographic changes. As we see that the India's senior population is going to get double in 25 years. So we are contemplating multiple policy changes around the country, but also contemplating how human settlements will be changing. So the topic of this theme is not the aging economy or the silver economy, which I'm sure you must have already read in the previous Analyst. The topic of discussion is how to create senior living spaces in India. So to quickly simplify this article for you, first of all, we will learn the changing trends that is happening with India's demography. So you already know that we are having a very rich demographic dividend, but at the same time, we are also developing an economy where senior players are also going to rise. Currently, we have got 153 million people who are above the age of 60 years, which accounts for 10.1% of the total population of the country. Problem is not this. The problem is this rate is going to get doubled in 25 years, which means the entire economic transition needed to be made in order to accommodate our elderlies. So first of all, it talks about the expansion of senior living market. So the places where the senior people preferred to live were mostly about after their 60s, were mostly around their medical needs, because they would want more or better assisted support in terms of medical support. But now they are moving from medical based needs to lifestyle based needs, because mostly nuclearization is going on. Most of their children are going abroad or moving to some other cities. So they know that they are going to live an individualized life. Now, if they are going to live that, they would prefer to go to better places which would give them more joy, peace and fulfillment, mostly to the temple towns. It was also seen that Varanasi nowadays is seeing a lot of bookings by people who are 60 plus. So this suggests to us that there is an expansion of the senior living places in India. So the market is growing. So which means demand is growing. Now what about the supply? So market growth. So first of all, the projected market growth, which means how much are we likely to get increase in terms of the senior living market. It is going to be 5 times by 2030. What are the current levels? If you talk about the senior living spaces or the flats that they're asking for, the demand is of 20 lakhs units of houses as of 2024, and the supply stands only at 20,000 units. So just imagine what is going to happen when this demand is going to get 5-fold. The next is they are preferring ownership over leasing. So this is just an Indian idea, how we would just like to own the land, own the houses and not just lease them, which is contrary to that of USA or that of the other Western nations, because majority of the elderlies over there take the houses for lease, but in the case of India, they would require ownership. So therefore, creating spaces which are rendering them ownership, creating residential spaces which are also having certain services or assisted services which are supporting their unique demands. So that is also required. That is the preference of Indian senior market. And second, there is regional differences highlighted by this article. Regional differences say that, see, we already know that the nuclearization, the concept of individualization is more penetrated in the southern states of India. So therefore, the aging population and the aging market, the demand of living spaces for the senior citizens is much more higher in the southeast, in the southern states of India as compared to the northern state, which would still prefer to live in close-knitted families. So southern dominance is there. But at the same time, there is climatic appeal of the south. So majorly the cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, they are the ones which are having the majority of the market for the senior living space. Okay, it is also now growing in the north region also, because north regions become very difficult, especially for the elderlies, to live in the cold times, in the winter time. So they also prefer to move towards south to more warmer places. So this is the demography changes which are going on. It is evident in front of you. Next is how policymakers and regulations are also supporting them. So first of all, Niti Aayog itself calls for a recommendation where it said that the accreditation of senior care facilities should be prioritized by the government in the terms of funding and providing them clearances. To provide them clearances, there should be single window approval for fast track projects. So are you getting how policy support is also getting there? Next is there should be minimum standards for the senior living spaces so that they live in safe, hygienic and assisted areas which are elderly friendly. And also there is insurance support. What is the insurance support? They are included under Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana as well, and there is Vayoshri scheme as well. And there are certain state level initiatives. For example, the Maharashtra's RERA board also calls for creating assisted living spaces for senior people exclusively. Okay, what are the future consideration for the developer? Because now the urban developers have to take more cognizance of the shifting demographics. So they should create business models which are not lease based, they are ownership based, but are providing services which are elderly friendly, and there should be specialist players which should be working in this area so that the elderlies do not get commercially exploited in this real estate sector. Now our next news is about the analysis of why and how the rupee has fallen down to the record low level of 84 rupees in front of $1. So when I'm saying that you now have to purchase $1 out of 84 rupees, this means that which rupee has got weakened? Indian rupee has got weakened and dollar has got strengthened. What are the reasons behind it? This we'll be covering in this explain section. So first of all, what are the causes which Indian rupee doesn't like? So when these causes trigger, Indian rupee becomes very sad and it starts falling off. First of all is the high demand for the US dollar. See, if there is high demand of one currency and low demand of the other currency, what will happen? The investors will start flowing towards the high demand one, and therefore this will lead to loss of interest, loss of capital from the country where the currency is losing its demand. So therefore, whenever there is strengthening of the US dollar, wherever there is high demand of the US dollar, why? Because the inflation is getting contained or regulated by the government, or they are offering higher interest rate. In that case, the rupee will weaken. Second is because there is a trade deficit. So our forex reserves are there to compensate our trade deficit mostly. And also remember that trade deficit means that how much are we importing as compared to how much are we exporting. Right? If we are importing more in terms of value or in terms of quantity, it means that I'm going to suffer more deficit. It means in order to cover this deficit, I have to give more money from my forex reserves, which means my forex reserve, the deposit of dollars, is going to get drained with my exchequer. Therefore, whenever there is a trade deficit, whenever there is a surge in the prices of the commodity that I import from other countries, at that time what happens? Indian rupee cries and Indian rupee weakens down. Second is the global economic conditions. See, stock markets is where the maximum amount of capital inflow happens, especially from the foreign institutional investors. Now what happens is stock market hates volatility. It always likes stability. So you see, whenever we see that there is a sudden change in government, the stock market crashes. And whenever we see that the same government is continuing for a longer period of time, the stock market becomes very strengthened. This is why when global economic condition becomes uncertain, or whenever there is geopolitical tension or crisis, this is also not liked by the Indian economy or by any stock market. Therefore, again, our rupee becomes depressed and it weakens. Second is higher inflation in India. Inflation means erosion of the money of an economy. So higher inflation means that rupee has got eroded, which means rupee has weakened. Second is lower foreign direct investment and portfolio inflows. If I'm not getting money, let's say dollar, from other countries, which means my rupee is getting weakened, because the more amount of dollar I have of other countries, the more my rupee will stand strong. So therefore, if I'm losing out on FDIs or capital inflows in any form, the rupee will get weakened. Next is, if I'm having a lot of external debt to pay or repayment obligation, then also this will happen. If there are interest rate differentials, if one country is offering higher interest rate, then the entire FIIs will going to be attracted towards that country, because they're going to get better interest as compared to my country. So wherever there is stark interest rate differential between two economies, then also the erosion or the eloping of the money happens. This also weakens the money. Second, whenever there is speculation in the currency market that in the future time this person is going to assume the presidency, so therefore the rupee will get weakened. So that kind of speculation also erodes the trust of people, the trust of investors in the Indian economy. They try to pull out their money. The rupee gets weakened. Next is weakening of the domestic economy, which means recession is going on, let's say. All of these reasons are hated by the Indian rupee, through which Indian rupee gets weakened. Now let us see what is happening in today's scenario. First of all, we see that the Israel and Lebanon war is going on. Geopolitical tension is there, because of which the oil supplies are also touted to be surged, right? Oil prices surge means we are going to suffer from trade deficit. Trade deficit is hated by Indian economy, and therefore what we can see is that Indian rupee is falling down. Second reason is higher demand for the dollar because of the policy measures taken by the FedEx. Policy measures such that how they are trying to contain the inflation, how they are trying to bring up their interest rate because of the rising inflation. Therefore, the investors are likely to get attracted towards their market. This is also termed as the greenback, higher demand for the greenback. What is greenback? Dollar. Okay, so I hope this is understood to you. Second is the outflow of the FIIs. Why? Because the US dollar, US market seems more interesting to them. Also, they might be having lesser confidence in the Indian economy right now. So FIIs are also eloping out of Indian market. These are the reasons why currently our Indian economy, though is strong, but the rupee is getting depreciated to a record low of 84 rupees. Another interesting fact, the FIIs that are causing outflow from the Indian market are not just moving to USA. They are moving to China. They are assuming the strategy of sell India and buy China. Why? Because of the manipulation of the Chinese stock by the Chinese market players. So they are moving to Chinese stocks, which are much more cheaper now. So if you take any company stock in India as compared to that company stock in China, it's going to be very, very cheap in China. So therefore, all the FIIs are going over there to get more profits. So I hope that this condition, these criteria of weakening of rupee is clear to you. Now let me bring the next topic to you, which is about how the urban elite are causing urban heat island effect, worsening the heat effects for the marginalized communities. So this editorial begins with the fact that India's summer has shattered record with red alerts issued nationwide. Over 200 lives recorded were lost to heat waves. So first of all, what is a heat wave condition? This is an extreme climate change event, but a sporadic weather event, which is characterized by, according to IMD, extended period of hot weather relative to the expected condition of the area. This is very important to know. Therefore, the criteria of having heat wave is different for the hilly area, different for the land area, different for sea and different for land. So in the terms of IMD's definition, if a temperature of a place crosses 40 degrees in the plains for a sustained period of time for, let's say, 3 days, and 37 in the coastal areas and 30 degrees centigrade in the hill, then it is declared to be suffering from heat waves. So temperature of that place has to go above and over 4.5 and has to sustain itself for over a week. That is when the heat wave is justified. Heat waves are primarily found in urban areas, which were the urban areas, urban landscapes, which also developed the urban heat island effect. It is a phenomena where the urban areas, let's say this is Delhi, and it is surrounded by, let's say a rural counterpart. Rural counterpart means less development, more number of trees, and the urban area, the core urban area, the central business district means lot of concretization, loss of trees. So you will see that at every time you will see a stark difference in the temperature. There will be a rise in temperature observed in the urban areas because of the use of asphalt, concrete, because of the ACs that we use, the greenhouse gases that we emit. So because of the urban consumption and patterns, the urban heat island gets generated. So this temperature would be 4 to 5 degrees hotter as compared to the rural counterpart. This is known as urban heat island effect, very prominent in the urban areas, which accentuates the impact of heat or the heat waves. Now, what is discussed in this editorial is who are they impacting more? It's not impacting the elite people who are actually contributors of the urban heat island effect, or who are the contributor of the heat wave majority times, because they are the ones who are choosing to ride in one vehicle, one person, one vehicle. They are the ones who are choosing to be in the glass ceilings, roof doors. They are the ones who are choosing to open up their ACs all the time. They are the ones causing greenhouse gas emission more. They are the ones who are creating greenhouse gases around them. And this, when it accentuates the warming, it makes the marginalized people suffer more, namely the delivery boys, the auto drivers, the construction workers, the women domestic workers, the street vendors who have to naturally go on the pedestrian route and they cannot afford the luxuries which the elite people are affording. For example, the ACs, the ceiling roofs, etc. So therefore, this article calls out the poor urban planning, which remains unchecked. Why is it remaining unchecked? Because the privileged who have got more influence are less affected. That is a problem of disparity of getting affected. Let's say if a flash storm occurs at a normal residential colony, and at the same time it occurs at an area where highly influential people, let's say the MPs and MLAs are living, then in that case where the more swift action will be taken by the authorities? Of course here. Why? Because these elite people are having more influence. So whenever they are getting impacted by the problems, they are getting solved more quickly. The problem over here is that there is disparity in suffering. The marginalized people are suffering more, but they are not having influence, so therefore their problems are getting ignored. At the same time, the influential people who are cut off from this part of the world, which is suffering from the huge impact of heat waves, they are not even suffering from it. What is the reason? Reason highlighted over here is technology, first of all, which insulate the privileged from the harsh realities of the urban life. You want to order something, order on Swiggy. You want to have any kind of dusting done in the house, you want any kind of revamping done in the house, you can call the urban company. So this is thus the example of how we are not going out, so we are not able to see how the people are suffering on the ground. And because we are not suffering because of the tech-enabled ecosystem and because of the greater human domestication and detachment that it has created, we are becoming ignorant of the invisible labor which is already providing us these services. Okay, and this insulation, this isolation of the upper classes from the external environment has profound implication on the governance also, because if they are not demanding for better governance, it will never happen, because the people who are marginalized are not influential enough to talk about it, to ask for it. But the people who can actually ask for it, who can expedite the process of ensuring a better governance, better climate resilient infrastructure, they are the ones who are untouched by the impact of climate changes. Why? Because of technology. So here we have read three things growing together. One is the social inequality getting generated, poor urban governance, and how technology contributes in both of them. Because technology is making the elite and the privileged one insulated from the impact of the climate change that is being suffered by the ground workers. So think about it. It's a very good read. So we can try to use this example in the case of how technology is also exacerbating the climate change, is also exacerbating the poor urban governance and social inequalities. Now another important news. The Israel Defense Forces tanks have destroyed the main gate of the facility of UN peacekeeping force at Ramia at the South Lebanon on Sunday, which means they have attacked the gate of the UN peacekeeping mission. The UN peacekeeping mission, the forces are very important topic for UPSC. And we will be also reading about the UNIFIL, which stands for United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. So first of all, let's read about the United Nations Peacekeeping Mission. So what happened is, in the year 1948, United Nations, because of its charter, UN Charter suggests that it's one of the responsibility of United Nations Security Council to instill peace and security in the conflict-ridden regions. So therefore, United Nations Security Council is given the powers to establish the peacekeeping mission in the conflict-ridden regions unless they become war-free or conflict-free. So the UN peacekeeping forces for the first time were deployed in Middle East in 1948. In the year 1948. Now, till now, we have got about 12 UN peacekeeping missions deployed in about 12 conflict-ridden regions of the world. For example, you can see that there is one in India and Pakistan with different name. One is there in Lebanon, one is there in Congo, one is there in Darfur, one is there in Liberia, in Haiti. So in almost all the parts of the continent, we have got about 12 UN peacekeeping missions with different names deployed. UN peacekeeping mission is driven by the objective that they shall not be using violence unless used in defense or unless used in order to safeguard the principles of the United Nations peacekeeping mission. So what is the purpose over here? The purpose is to assist nations in transitioning from a war economy or from a war country to a peaceful country. And when it ensures that peace has been restored, then it takes away or it departs its mission from that particular area. And for this reason, in 1988, the UN peacekeeping mission already has got the Nobel Peace Prize. The guiding principles are, first of all, the consent of the party have to be there in order to deploy the peacekeeping mission. There should be impartiality, non-use of force except for in self-defense or defense of the mandate on which the US peacekeeping is based on. What is the composition? It not just deploys the soldiers. Of course, there are soldiers for military purposes, but of course, they also involve civilians from around the world to carry out the peacekeeping mission. When it comes to India, we are the 5th largest troop contributor to the UN peacekeeping mission, and they also celebrate International Day of UN Peacekeeper. This is not important from UPSC point of view, not reading on that. India's contribution is important. More so, the All India women contingent that we have been deploying. So largest women contingent has been deployed in the ABA region of Africa. Now you tell me, in which country is this ABA conflicted region belonging to? Write that down in the comment section. Now, talking about the fatalities are also occurring. In fact, India last year was reported to be having the largest casualties among the peacekeeping forces. And what are the measures to control it? It is also highlighted by the UN peacekeeping mission. Most importantly, the last thing, how we award Paramveer Chakra, Shok Chakra to the people who have sacrificed their lives or who have made exceptional contribution in securing the security of the country. Similarly, in the case of UN peacekeeping, they have got Dag Hammarskjöld Medal. So remember this medal also, and this is all about the prelims point of view of UN peacekeeping mission. These are some of the missions. If a question comes to you, there is no peacekeeping mission between India and Pakistan, that statement would be incorrect. But yes, there is no peacekeeping mission between India and China. So remember that. In the next topic, we'll be reading about two very important initiatives from the Ministry of Defence of India, defence technology, and how to boost it with the use of some funds, certain funds, which is going to be provided by these two crucial schemes. One is iDEX and the second scheme is ADITI scheme, which is a revamped version of which is a more specialized scheme within the iDEX scheme. So first of all, what is iDEX initiative? If I want to foster innovation and technology in any sector, let alone be defense, what is required? Participation of private sectors. To allow the participation of private sectors, I have to give them fund, I have to give them support, better clearances, quicker clearances, and more innovative incubation centers, right? That is all what iDEX provides. So it has got a huge fund which supports the industries, MSMEs, startups, individuals also, academia also, for developing defense technology. Why are we doing this? In order to promote indigenization of the defense in India, okay? So that our imports or our import bill on purchasing these defense technologies could be lessened down. This mission was launched in 2018 and was there to last for up to 5 years from 2021 to 2025. Now, this year only, in 2024, another integral mission, a specialized mission within iDEX was launched with the name of ADITI. ADITI stands for Acing Development of Innovative Technologies with iDEX. This is to create certain emerging and critical technologies and inbuilt them into our defense systems. For example, using better drones, using IoT technology, using artificial intelligence, deep tech, etc. into our defense domain. For that, a 2-year mission was targeted where government will be providing support for up to 50% of the total project cost for up to 30 projects involving integrating critical and emerging technologies in defense sector. So the entire idea of iDEX is to promote indigenization of the Indian defense sector. Okay, so as you can see that one newspaper article also highlights that how miniaturized satellites are getting created by the private sector supported by the iDEX funds. Now iDEX funds, 80% of them are already utilized by now, and we are only standing in the 3rd year, which means there is requirement of more fund, and that is what is argued in this particular article. Defense Ministry seeking more fund to expand the scope of the iDEX scheme. So I hope you've understood that topic. And now, our last topic of the day, this is with regards to how Wayanad, who was previously devastated by floods triggered by the cloudburst, which eventually triggered the landslide causing a lot of deaths, more than 200 deaths, is now getting a new X-band radar. So what is the significance of X-band radar? What is this technology? And how will it help Wayanad and the other countries in preventing landslide and such cloudburst situation? So first of all, what do we mean by radar? Radar is the one which deploys radio waves, which means it is radio detection and ranging. So what happens? There is one transmitter, there is one receiver. So if I want to understand anything, if I want to understand, let's say, the size or the intensity of any substance, let's say a raindrop, okay, a raindrop, I will be transmitting these, I will be hitting it with these radio waves. These radio waves, after getting reflected, will reach a receiver. So receiver will be able to understand how much time was taken, how much dampening of the actual intensity of radio wave has happened, which means what is the intensity of the raindrop. So all of these can be calculated with the help of radar. Now a question to you, which technology or which kind of waves sonar uses? Which kind of waves does sonar uses? Coming back to the topic, here a radar is getting developed, which is radio detection and ranging. This full form is important. Now here I have already told you how it functions. Now the second thing is a weather radar which has to be more precise because it has to calculate the timing and the movement of, let's say, the clouds and the other weather patterns like air and precipitation. It has to be augmented with the Doppler effect. So it uses a Doppler radar. This is the most commonly used device, because how to understand whether a wind is moving towards us or wind is moving away from us, that can be utilized, that can be done with the help of understanding of Doppler effect. So what is the phenomenon of Doppler effect? Let's go back to our physics classes of 10 standard. So Doppler effect means when relative motion of a body happens, the frequency of sound changes, which means let's say a van which is coming, an ambulance which is coming with a huge glaring horn. If it's coming near me, the sound will get more and more high, the pitch will get more and more high. Why? Because the frequencies, the wave of frequencies will become higher as it moves towards the observer. As it moves away from an observer, you will see the glaring, you will see the decreasing sound. Why? Because frequency is decreasing. So in order to understand whether something is moving near to us or away from us, or what is the direction of motion, what is required to understand? We require to understand its frequency. So when we calculate the frequency of, let's say, the flowing wind or let's say the flowing clouds, we'll be able to see whether they'll be developing into a cloud burst or whether a storm is going to come or not, in which direction is it going to affect, all of that with the help of a Doppler radar. So I hope you've understood this concept. In this particular case, we use pulse Doppler radars because they are much more precise. They are even precise to the level of calculating the movement of a raindrop. Therefore, pulse Doppler radar are used. Now, second thing is, why are we using X-rays? Why are we using X-rays? Because of the Rayleigh effect. Rayleigh effect says, Rayleigh effect suggests which kind of wavelength, the radiation of which kind of wavelength is most suitable for studying a scatterer of a particular size. If you want to study, let's say, mountain, there will be a different kind of radiation involved. If you want to study a dust particle, a different wavelength of radiation would be required, and this is suggested by Rayleigh effect. Now in this case, we are looking forward for more details. We are looking forward to studying the size of a dust or a raindrop, etc. So what are we going to require? We are going to require the X-rays. If you see the X-rays, they have got smaller wavelength, larger frequency as compared to what we typically use in radars, that is the radio waves. So here we are using the X-rays. Okay. Why? Because the size that we are studying, the raindrop that we are studying, is very, very minuscule, very small. So if I am going to use a very long wavelength, it is not going to be effective in studying this raindrop. So I am going to use something with smaller wavelength. Okay, that is why X-rays are being deployed. Now, when it comes to satellite communication, you must have heard of the P band, L band, Q band, C band, Ka band, etc. So these bands belong to the microwave part of the spectrum, and this is used by a very important imaging, climate imaging, landscape imaging satellite, which is a collaboration between India, which is ISRO, and NASA. This is known as NISAR satellite. So another imaging radar, this is the NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar, short form of which is the NISAR satellite, which is coming with the objective of building high resolution map for mapping the entire earth land masses. It is going to utilize the L band and it is going to utilize the S band. Why is it going to utilize something which is having larger or longer wavelength? Because it is going to map something which is larger in size, that is the landscapes. Okay, so I hope you've understood this concept. Here we have read what is NISAR. NISAR is going to be launched with the help of ISRO's GSLV Mark II, not Mark III. We have read what is Doppler effect, what is Rayleigh effect, why are we using the X-ray radar over here, and we have seen how radar is instrumental in us understanding and preventing the landslides and the cloudburst. So this was all about today's discussion. I hope you have liked it. Thank you so much and have a nice day.